Hello, welcome back to TSC Talks, the podcast where we talk about tuberous sclerosis complex and other related issues such as intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism. My name's Jill Woodworth and I'm your host. Thanks so much for listening. I think I've recorded this particular intro about 100 times. I don't know why. I'm in a new living situation. We found a place to live. Our family had to move pretty quickly. So we are trying to find all our stuff and get reorganized, yada, yada, yada. So hopefully I won't say too many more times. I'm going to turn it over to Dena, Vice President of Support Services, as well as being an educational advocate for more than 25 years, which we fleshed out a little bit in a lot in the last episode. We're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to talk about her crossing paths with Kari, the volunteer programs that she's initiated, her creative process in developing those and mobilizing a huge contingent of parent mentors nationally, as well as starting the Dependent Adult Transition Resource Coordinator volunteer program, TSC Connect. She does touch on her understanding of our plight as far as parents. Of course she does, because she talked a lot about being her own inspiration for getting involved as an advocate dealing with her son's severe dyslexia. But she mentions how she's advocated for people from all walks of life, no matter who it is, senators, generals, majors. She's been up there standing up for them, and also has shared that it doesn't matter what letters you have after your name or who you are. The parents are often really not respected at this level, and this has rung true in my experience. It's very challenging across the board, so know that you're not alone, and Dena has your back. And if you'd like to get involved in the Parent Education Mentor Training Program, give her a holler. We've got more on the way from Dena. I do want to put it out there that I pre-gamed with Caroline Clybourne today, getting ready for the TAND webinar that she is presenting, sponsored by the TS Alliance, on June 25th. So we will have a podcast or two on that coming up as well. So again, thanks so much for all your positive feedback, for listening, and keep tuning in for more. So without further ado, take it away, Dena.
So now tell me, what was your first program?
So when I came on board, it was a huge learning curve for me. Mm-hmm. When they interviewed
me,
right,
because you're going to angiofibroma world and SAGA.
Yeah. And I told them when I interviewed, and I truly didn't think I had a chance to get the job.
Really?
I was shocked. I was very flippant. I said, you know what? If you want somebody that has a medical background, you don't want me.
Yep.
But I can learn it. If you want somebody that's an advocate, that's been doing it for a long time and knows special education, I can do that. I can learn the medical. You just give me somebody to teach me. I can learn the medical aspect of TS. And left that interview, didn't even think about it. And a week later, Kari goes, you ready to pack up and come to Silver Spring? Because that was one of the criteria. I had to move to Silver Spring.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And so I literally, a month and a half later, had sold my house, packed everything up, had been out, rented an apartment, and I was there.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
But you said the right thing, because that is exactly what was needed.
So when I came on board, there was a huge unrest.
Okay.
That we were not serving adults with TS. That our total focus was children with TS. And, that was a huge concern to Kari. Kari said, I don't want any of our constituents to feel that they're not supported. We need to get things going. So my first toe in the water was working with leaders of the adult community. Mark Martin was one of the
I just was chatting with him.
Yeah, and Kathy Hinkle, who are now adult regional coordinators.
Yep, I know Kathy.
So talked with them and their concerns. And so we developed the adult task force is what we developed. Keith Hall was part of that.
Okay.
And so we actually talked and kind of, okay, what are the needs? Where are we going? And that's when we started the adult topic call to kind of, educate on treatment and management. So we started with that. And then we wanted to go a next step further. And that's when we went to the adult regional coordinators. One of the frustrations in having these programs is that we have a really hard time getting adults to
I can only imagine.
It's just very difficult. They want the support. They want the services, but to get them to engage is very frustrating.
It's a vulnerable place.
Yeah. So the adult topic call, for a long time we didn't record them because we wanted them to feel open to be able to ask whatever questions they needed. And, that worked really well. But then we knew that so many people did not get on that call. I mean, we send postcards out to every adult in our database, and we maybe get 11 to 15
Yeah, it
people.
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So we take them now and post them on the adult webpage. So anybody can go in and click on them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, that was one of the things that, we really wanted to focus on. And now at all the regional conferences, we make sure that there is an adult regional coordinator there to talk to the adults to make sure that they know that we care about adults and we want to support adults. And we continue to try different strategies in getting them to engage. We would love for adults to be part of their local events because it's important for parents to see adults living with TS.
Yes.
That's very important. We had not this last World Conference, but the World Conference before that, we had an evening event where parents could come and ask questions of adults. We had a panel of adults with TS. And that room was standing room only.
I bet.
Parents really just wanted to know what was going on with their adults with TS, what they were going through.
Good for you. That's because I can't imagine how hard it is because I've lived it and seen that resistance. And that's part of my deep desire to break down walls of communication and just let people know that it doesn't matter how you're impacted by TSC or whatever. But so I feel a real calling to the adults out there.
Yeah, and that might be a good podcast for you to have.
Yeah.
Talk about Rob Grandia would be great.
I did talk to him at the conference and I said, would you want to be on the podcast? And he right away, he's like, oh, no. But then he hesitated and he said, well, I'll think about it. So I will. I got to circle back.
Yeah, I know because he's one of our board members and he is wonderful as far as making sure that adult component is in everything we do with the board and the staff, that we never forget the adults, that they're there. But he's frustrated too because he doesn't know how else to get them to engage. So we struggle with that. I would think that that's my biggest frustration right now is how can we get adults to engage more? We just haven't been successful at that.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's hard at the clinic level too to get, I know Dr. Teal has really tried to outreach, to more adults. And, what I can say is doing the calls with Emily Peters and Brianna, hearing they're coming up second generation and that'll be interesting because they seem at a different level of acceptance. And
well, and I think, them understanding that TAND is part of TS is, it's out there. They know they have those issues and they can deal with it. TAND was just labeled.
I know. I was on the call last night. I was just kind of lurking. It had been a really long day and I just wanted to, I wanted to make sure I heard you guys and heard what was going on. But I heard a little bit about, tell me. So you started with the adults at the TS Alliance.
Right. We started with the adults and then at that time, I would have loved to start a parent mentor group at that time, but I didn't have the people I needed at that time. But schools needed needed help. They didn't understand TS. They truly didn't. I started doing IEP meetings immediately, talking to school systems immediately, educating school systems immediately. And I knew I needed support. So my husband actually is the first one that he said, Dena, why don't you start a volunteer program to help the schools have professionals? He said, I'm sure in, the community there have to be teachers and, therapists. And I thought, that's a wonderful idea. And I reached out to the community and got a wonderful group of educator mentors and I have psychologists, ABA instructors, I have speech, OT, I have teachers, pre-K to college level. I have so much support that I can connect to school systems. And that's been very successful. I think last year we supported over 100 school systems with the educator, offered them that services. Not all of them engaged.
Right. I offered it. It's really tough to get through.
Yeah, it is. But, when they call, we're there. So we did the educator mentor program and then the DAT resource coordinator. So it's the Dependent Adult Transition Resource Coordinator program. And actually Julie Como actually was on that task force. She worked with me and
she mentioned it.
That program. So what happens is each state's resources are so vastly different. So all of the waiver programs are flow through dollars. So it comes from the federal government down to the states, and then the states decide what programs those dollars go into.
Okay.
And it changes. It changes. And they're all called different things.
Wow. So now, how did you get all that information?
Well, because when you get a call from a state,
so it's one state at a time. Like you get some calls, and so then you're engaged with that particular state.
And then I had to do the research to be able to find out where.
Oh man!
All of that. So
how did you find the resources?
Oh, you go online, or I actually still had national contacts.
Okay.
From working before, so I come in and say, hey, I'm working with somebody from Wyoming. What is the waiver? Do you know the name of the waiver? And then thank goodness we have Google. I do a lot of Googling.
Well,
And I actually developed a toolkit where I could go in and there actually found the links that goes right to the state where you can actually find the waivers. So I developed a toolkit for myself so that I could do that. But it was very time consuming. And I'm doing advocacy and I'm doing that and I'm developing a program and I'm answering calls and it's
unbelievable. So you're all over the place. I mean, that's a lot to keep track of.
So I actually went and I oversee the outreach committee on the board, and I said I would like to start a Dependent Adult Transition Resource Coordinator. Transition from school to community needs to happen. Families need support. I need individuals in the state that are familiar that, they're already receiving Social Security disability income. They've been through the process. They're on the waivers. They've been through the process and they can help families, hold families' hands to get them through this and actually tell them what needs to happen if it doesn't. So Julie and I worked, it took me a year and a half with her support because she is amazing. She's amazing.
I'd say.
She's like a pit bull. She gets hold of something and she's a researcher. She was awesome. She helped research a lot of things. So we launched the DAT Resource Coordinator program next. And believe it or not, I had a hard time getting outreach to understand the need for it, which was interesting.
Well, I think people get so immersed in their own circumstances and, not looking at the long term because there's so much going on in the moment that it's hard to think past and I will say that happened for me. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, it's still hitting me. Like I wish that's the place where like I was burnt. I was like, I can't handle this. I just got to step away. And, so I guess that's what I would say is that people get exhausted. So that's hard. So you can't find right when it's really needed.
Exactly. And so when people would call me, I started that program. I think we now have like 26